Good evening, interns. Can somebody please confirm if my screen is visible to them?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So I think we'll start right away, right? It has been a long week and long weekend, in fact, and we do not want to keep waiting for more time. So we'll continue where we left off. So last time we were looking at who is, and we looked at a couple more tools, right? So today we'll be considering social engineering as a whole, firstly. So firstly, what is social engineering? So it is a non-technical method of intrusion that relies heavily on human interaction and it often involves tricking people into giving a fraudster their personal information. So I think many of us are already aware about what social engineering is, right? So this is something that you may have already been doing. Uh, I'm not saying that you were, a hacker or some sort, right? What I'm trying to say is that we might have been doing this maybe as a prank on our friends or in general, but without even realizing that we were doing something like this. This may include, let's say, somebody's typing, let's say, a family member or some friend. They're typing their passcode into their phone, and you're just looking over them from over their shoulder and trying to figure out what their password is. And some of you might have even played some pranks on your friends, like gotten their phone or opened their Facebook and posted some silly things from their account, right? I think it is all fun, and until anybody gets hurt, it's all fun and right. So I think I personally did that with my friends, and this is basically an example of what social engineering is. So you're using your relationship with the target, with your the person you're trying to attack in this sense, and you are using that relationship between you two to get some information from them or get access to some device or server or their account, right? So that basically constitutes social engineering. So you're relying on the other person making that mistake, maybe of trusting you. But in this case, like we were doing it with our actual friends, it does not matter because we're not going to do something that damages their personality or causes harm to them. But if somebody befriended you and then they did this, the sole purpose of their friendship being to get something from you, then that constitutes this elaborate plan of social engineering. Now, you could be working in some company and you could be handling some credentials on a daily basis. Maybe you're not even using those credentials, but you have been assigned the duty to maybe circulate them or give access to certain people and so on. And somebody you find on an online site or maybe you meet them somewhere, right? And you think that it is not related. You don't even think twice, right? Because the things seem completely unrelated, that you're meeting somebody on a different domain. When I say domain, I'm meaning one domain would be your workplace, one domain would be your social, your private life. So you do not think about it that the two could be connected. But somebody who's befriending you might use your relationship with them and then could get access to those credentials, could get access to those accounts that you've been, held responsible for. So that would again be a social engineering attack, and this happens in a lot of espionages happen all the time where companies hire people to do this to their rival companies, and this is not just limited to companies. This is done by individuals as well. If they're trying to target some individual or some a company or some entity, right? And the scale could be on a very big scale as well. If you could target an entire nation as well if you somehow got tricked. There's some important people like some ministers or something, right? So those kind of things are also possible. So social engineering does not know any limits, and it operates in a pseudo cyber way, wherein it is not exactly on your cyber warsphere or your cyber sphere. You can do this on your real life and have those repercussions flow onto the cyberspace. So you could befriend them in your real life and then get some data which is related to your cyber machines or your networking and everything, right? So this is not exactly falling into cyber security or your cyber attacks, but then it has a component on that side as well. Now, it is not necessary that we do this in a very physical manner where we approach the target directly. We could do this sitting at our homes also, maybe using our social networking sites, or even if we do not want to engage them in this sense, we could use certain tools that can help us, like phishing, like spear phishing, whales, and there are other things as well. So we'll look at them in this lecture today. So firstly, I've cleared that what social engineering is. So by using social engineering, fraudsters can build off their recon intel. That is reconnaissance intelligence, recon intel. Another thing to note here is that for the past few lectures, we were looking at passive hacking methods where we were not directly engaging the targets. But this social engineering, it is kind of on the border here. It is passive and active both. In some aspects, it could be active where you directly engage in the target, but in other aspects, this could be passive also, where you're not engaging the target directly, but just somehow getting that information through social engineering itself. So this is on the borderline here, and so learn your target before the attack, right? That is pretty important. That is why we do all this reconnaissance and social media footprinting and all that information that we're collecting is because we need to know who our target is or where that target stands, as in what the security level is like in their company, in their systems, or if it is an individual, how well do they maintain their privacy or how do they take care of their devices? What do they put on their devices? Like if you think that the person who is you trying to target, he is somebody who does not remember passwords and is likely to have stored those passwords in a notes file on his phone, then you know that you have to attack that phone somehow and get access to those passwords from his phone, right? So that is how you are doing your reconnaissance. You're trying to find out which targets, like which devices you need to attack and how you need to attack them. So while preparing for social engineering attack, it's vital that you have a thorough knowledge of your target, right? So you need to have this, their name, obviously, email address. You could get both of these through their social media accounts, right? Most people are on social media these days, Facebook or Instagram or any other application that there is. You get their names, you get their email address. Now, why I'm specifying this name here, right? You could be targeting an entire company. So why this name is important is because some people might be working with those in those companies, and those people are the ones that you're going to trick using social engineering. I'm not talking about the other attacks right now. If you are directly attacking the systems in a different, planned attack, that is a different thing. When I'm talking about social engineering, you would be dealing with people. So you need to know their names, their email address. Now, email address, again, you could use your publicly available information that we talked about in the earlier lectures, like we talked about OSINT, OSINT, that is open source intelligence, right? So you could use that, or you could scroll through or browse through their accounts and find some email addresses that you can use. Why is this important? Because again, we need to identify them uniquely. Their names could not be unique. You could find many people named John, but only one would be having a particular email ID. That is the whole point of the email ID being unique. That is why they prompt it. If you try to create an account, it will prompt you if you are using some existing email ID, and it will not let you use that. Favorite pastimes, and see, this is something that you get by interacting with them, maybe, or by observing them. You could be looking at them, how they're spending their times, maybe from a distance, or following their online activity, right? So based on that, you would get their favorite pastimes, and this again is important in order to build that social engineering your attack. Company position. Now this becomes important when you are doing this against a company. So you need to know the person you're trying to target, which position is he working in. So that will dictate what kind of information can you expect from them. If he is somebody who's working as a receptionist, you're not going to get some security information from them, right? But if they're working in some security department, maybe they're using, maybe they are responsible for the CCTV surveillance or everything. So you could get some security information as to how or when the security footages are recycled, or how the camera systems are working, and so on. So I'm not trying to elaborate a plan here. What I'm trying to tell you is that based on different position of the person, your attack or your target could be different. Normal schedule, again, just like favorite pastime, what is the normal schedule? If you can get this, that also can be useful. And again, this list is not exhaustive here. You can find out many more things, and it is up to you as to how you are able to imagine your attack and execute it. So this attack will not know any limitations, because people are involved, and people are unpredictable. So all these things that we're gathering, again, people are ultimately going to be unpredictable. So it is you, your instinct, that is going to help you out in that stage. So superiors and underlings, then this is your the person's juniors and seniors. So this is about what we need to know about the target. So telephone. So unfortunately, most people are willing to and give too much information. Like if you take an example, you call somebody's reception. You call an office's reception and you inquire about some things. let's say you were trying to find out the name of the boss. Now, they should not give you that information right away or at all, in fact. You should not know that information. For you, that company is the entity, and you do not need to know the name of the boss. But if you maybe phrased your conversation in a way that you get that information from the reception. Let's say you praise them. Let's say you say that I was facing this and this an issue, and the boss, your company's boss, he helped me out, and I really wanted to thank him. So can you please provide me with this contact information so I can, personally thank him. This is just an example I'm trying to give. So in this way, the receptionist or the person who you're talking to, they might reveal that information to you in good faith. Now, they were not supposed to reveal this information, but they did because of the fact that you had that fake conversation with them to get that information. So, this is how telephone can be useful. And I've just taken an example here. You could do this in n number of ways. Influence, right? So, at its heart, influence is the process of getting someone else to do something that you, or as a social engineer, want. Like in the example that I just took, I wanted to know that information about the boss, the head of the company. Why did I know that? I want to know that maybe I was trying to fake his identity, or find out his online activity, or identify my target. Maybe I want to target him, or I want to steal his identity and take that identity and do some other transaction in his name. So I need know those details, which I did not have earlier. This may be the way you want them to react, something you want them to think, or even an action that you want them to take, right? So an example, as a kid, when you were wanted to do something, let's say, so this example is actually good, and I think most of us would be relating to this. So if you want to go to your friend's house and you want permission from your parents, so what kind of a mechanism or what kind of a conversation will you have? You'll say, Mom, may I stay the night at my friend's? Right? And this is very basic. You are just simply putting that question across to them, and most likely they will say no, because you did not have that conviction to convince them. You just plain stated as to what you want, and it is just 50-50. More likely they're going to say no. But if you ask them that, Mom, all the boys in my class are having a sleepover at so and so's house, and they're going to have a pizza, and they're going to have games, and I'm very excited. Please, can I go? So if you're doing that, you're trying to convince them. You're trying to actively engage in a conversation with them that is likely to give you that permission to go. So most children would likely use the later one. That is the more elaborate request, right? And why? Because that they want to influence the parents' decision. So in a way, from very beginning, when we were children, we have been trying to influence others using various techniques which we may not even know about, right? So this is just one technique that is we're trying to influence them. Reciprocity. So uh, it's like if you do something for them, if you engage your target in some way and you do something for them, and you make them feel that you have done, let's say, a favor for them, so they're inclined to say thank you. That is a very basic thing that we've learned, right? That is the very basic manner that they or anybody in general in the world learns from, since they are growing up, that you need to thank people for if they're doing something for you. So if you do something for them and they're inclined to say thank you, but that thank you is just a start there, right? You could ask something in return. Depending on what you did for them, you could ask something in return. And now it doesn't have to be that you had to, do something out of the way for them. You may have done something which is quite ordinary for you, but not ordinary for them. And in return, you are asking for something that is not ordinary for them and not ordinary for you either, right? So you can people exploit this as well during their social engineering. Now that we've looked at ways that you can influence your targets, we can also talk about elicitation. So elicitation is the next phase in social engineering. So after one them on your side, it's time to begin attempting to extract that information. So now that you have established that you are a good person, right? You may have done something for them and they said thank you, or they somehow feel that you are a good person, you're not a bad person. They're not getting that vibe from you that you somehow going to exploit them for some information. So now you can try to, if you went straight out and asked for what you want, it is more likely that they're going to either say no, or that is the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is maybe that they'll report you for trying to steal that information. But once you have won them over to your side, once they got you, they trusted you. So that is, you can now elicit the information that you wanted from them all along. So flattery is one. So it can be a powerful tool for a social engineer, and when it's done correctly, because people generally are fond of themselves, or they want to listen to compliments. Right? Uh, this is a very natural human feeling. If you compliment somebody, they are more likely to like you. Right, that's a fact. There can be exceptions. Obviously, there is no nothing like it will work in 100% case of cases, but in most cases, if you compliment somebody, they're likely to have a positive, image of yourself, of you in their mind. So, like, so if I say something like, "I like your accent. Where were you born?" or "Where are you from?" So it's you're like really good at this job. You keep everything moving exceptionally well. So this is called Art of Deception, and this is in Kevin Mitnick's book. So he discusses this flattery as a technique. So in this sense, you are getting some information from them as well. When we win them over to our sites, when we get them to like us, we can get information from them. And so I think by the end of he asked the manager's name. So this is the example that I was giving earlier about calling your target company and getting information about their manager. He somehow gave a compliment to their company, or to the boss, that they somehow helped him in any way. And because of that compliment, the help desk was inclined to give information about them, right? Again, false statements is also another factor, another technique that you could use. So false statement is like, this again is a human tendency. If I say something which is false, you may not like it firstly, right? You may want to oppose it. And if I say something that is exaggeratingly false, you would have that urge to correct me with the correct information. So there is this example that is here, right? So I'll just read out this one. So I heard you guys, security is top notch. Someone that used to work there told me that your company uses special antivirus that was made by the NSA. Now NSA is your national security agency. This is from this is USA's agency, right? So it's likely that they would respond with something like, "No, no, we're just using semantic. Don't know where you got that information from. I'm sorry, you're mistaken." Right? So this is an example of a conversation that could have happened. So what has happened is that the attacker, he did not know that they were using semantic. He just said something that was so absurd that he involved the NSA. So the target, he had the urge to correct our attacker, to tell them that no, we are not using some software from NSA. That is so absurd. We are using semantic, right? So this is one example. Again, you could use this in an n number of ways, but the fact remains that if you use some false information, you give a false statement, the other party is likely to give a correction on that regard, as to tell you that no, no, it's not like that. It is like this. But we then again, we need to be careful with this, because if we go on in a very absurd manner and we keep playing that card again and again, they are likely to see through us and see that we're trying to get information. So we can use this maybe one or two times, but then if you try to play that card again and again, it will be busted. So again, body language also speaks volumes, right? So as we already know, people use their entire bodies to communicate, and studies have shown that a great percentage of our communication is with our bodies. So you may be thinking, what does this have to do with social engineering? So it is actually very beneficial for both sides. So if you are able to read the person's body language, how they're responding to what you're saying or doing, that will also lead you to your next step. You'll be able to decide the next step further. It's like, if you're saying something, you're making a false statement, and you see their expression changing in such a way that you realize that maybe they are onto you, or they're not falling for this. So you need to stop. You need to rethink your strategy, right? And this is before even they respond to you. You have read that based on their body language or based on their expressions, something that was unsaid. So we need to learn that art as well. If we know it, it's really good. If we don't, we can work on that. And again, the receiving party, that is the target here, even if they also know this body language techniques, they would also be able to tell or read the attacker when they're making a move. So if they were earlier considering that their so-called friend is innocent or not involved, they can read their body language and tell, okay, there may be something suspicious going on. So body language speaks volumes. So this is just one example. So like if you see this baby, how the hands have been placed, you see that the baby is comfortable. And again, it is very obvious if the baby was crying, you know that they're uncomfortable with you. And this posture also is very comfortable. These are some uncomfortable situations. So if you read such a body language, like maybe nail biting or covering your mouth, deep breathing, stress in your eyes, uh, shoulders being taut, not loose at all. So all those things could be signs that the person is stressed. And these are just two examples, comfortable and uncomfortable. You can divide this up into a lot of different ways and a lot of different forms of feelings. So it could be beneficial if somebody is planning a social engineering attack. It is going to be beneficial for them if they are able to read the body language. So now that we've talked about the social engineering in general, when we're talking about the techniques used in real life, basically, right? So that is your real life implications about your relations with the people you're trying to target. Now there is something called a social engineer's toolkit that is set. So you can use it to create phishing emails, perform recon attacks, or on websites, creating malicious payload deliveries, PowerShell attacks, and a lot more. It's really a useful and powerful tool that you could spend some time learning. And when I say it is it is a powerful tool, that means that it is a very powerful tool. And I think we'll just see a demo of that, right? So give me a minute. I will log on to my Kali. I'll start it. Now, this social engineering toolkit is available on Parrot as well. So, if you have your Parrot, you could use that and try to, play around with it. So, you can find it under applications. If you're using Kali, it will be under your social engineering tools, and on your Parrot, it will be under a similar heading, or you could just search for it, right? So, this is your social engineering toolkit, right? And this is run as root. When I say root, you know that it is run as an administrator. And I'll just make the text a little bigger, or I'll need to maybe do it from there. And I'll maximize this now. So it's going to ask me for my password, which I'll just enter. Uh, yeah. So this is my social engineering toolkit, and the interface could be a little different because they keep shuffling this banner with on the top, right? Every time you open it, you might get a different banner. So it has a lot of tools here, right? You can use your social engineering attacks, penetration testing, third-party modules, update the social engineering toolkit, update set configuration, right? So as you can see, we are already in this. So this is like a Python script that is running, and we just need to enter what we are trying to do. So I could just enter the number from here. So let's say I wanted to do a social engineering attack. So I'll just say 1, and I'll press enter. And now it is giving me a list of those attacks that I can do. So firstly, fear phishing attack vectors, website attack vectors, infectious media generator, and so on. Right. So how do we use this? Let's do one thing. Let's create uh, an attack, right? So I think I'll first go back to the main menu, and what do we have here? This is not what I want to show you. I think I want to show you. Let's talk about website attack vectors and credential harvester method, right? So I'll take this example. So we can read about all this, right? But essentially what I'm trying to do is I'll do it first and then I'll tell you what I'm doing, right? So because again, visual memory is the best memory. So if you can follow along, that's really good. But otherwise, I'll just show you what I'm trying to do. So let's say I wanted to do this on Facebook, and I should have wrote the complete this thing address. So this is the Facebook thing, but I already have an account. I wanted to get this right, so I'll do this. I think I'll remove the excess address here. I do not want all this. Okay, that should not have happened. Facebook.com/login, and I'll just copy this one here. That is my address, right? So I'll be using this address. I'll be using this website. Now, what I need to do is I'll use a site cloner and IP address for the post back address. So this is, I'll do this on my own system for now, and I'll tell you more about it when I'm done with this. The URL to clone, I will just enter facebook.com/login. This will clone it, and I think that is running. So how will I get access to it? Right. So I just entered that email, that IP address, and it has opened this web page, which looks exactly like the Facebook's web page, right? I could enter some information here, like I would write FireShark, and I'll enter a password here. Let's say I've entered a password and I click login. Once I do that, I'll be redirected to the Facebook's website, and it looks like a glitch that has happened. I'll enter my information again, and I'll maybe ignore what just happened. But over here, what has happened is, now I'll stop this. I'll return to continue, and the file is exported to root set reports, right? So I'll go there. I will open that right now. Let's use the graphical user interface for now. Other locations, computer, root. Of course, my password is needed for this. Okay. And I need to have hidden files enabled here, so I'll say show hidden files dot set. I think this was in my web clone. No, this was in my reports, and this is my report. If I just open it, it requires password. I will zoom in a little. How do we do that? But the two things that we can see is that the email and the password I have received here in this file, right? So having done that, now that you know that this what has happened, now I'll try to explain what I've done here. So what I did was first I'll go back to the main menu. I'll start from the beginning and back again. This was my starting point, right? I have taken one example of an attack that I could have done. So this is a social engineering attack. So I'll be pressing 1 here, and from this list I had selected website attack vectors. So this theme is basically against websites, right? And now we have a lot of options here. I've taken a very simple one, which is called credential harvester attack, right? It is supposed to harvest credentials from your targets. So I selected that, and you can read all this documentation on your own in your own time, right? So the three options that we get over here is that we can use web templates, like some the templates that have been set by some people. You could reuse that. So if I select one here, it'll give me a list, or I'll have to select from them. When I say site cloner, that is what I just did. Was I input a URL of a website, and it was able to clone that website as it is, like a ditto website's cloner, and nobody could tell the difference between the two. Then custom import is something that you yourself made a website, or messed around with the HTML page and created your own, basically your URL that you wanted to do. So over here I had selected site cloner, and now this is asking for an IP address for the post back. So what this means is that I need to give an IP address on which the user or the target needs to log in, or let's say browse. So I had set it on my own IP address, right? Because I am doing this in my own local area network on my Wi-Fi. The thing is, if I wanted to do this on a public Wi-Fi, that is a public IP address. If I wanted to do this, maybe I want to harvest credentials from a large number of people. I want to create a fake website. So for that, firstly, I would need a URL, right? And an IP address that is going to back that URL. What happens is, on your default routers, your ports have been disabled to allow such kind of traffic to reach your device. I could do this. I could configure my router so that I could get an IP address, or even not an IP address. In fact, my router's public IP address that is going to be used, and it will act as a server for me. So it will receive all those requests from everybody who's trying to access that public IP address, and it will be forwarded to me, right? So I could host my own server for this. That is completely fine. If I wanted to, I could get a website. I could register myself on some website or some domain and harvest from there itself. But this is sort of an easier and freeware, where I could just use an IP address of my own router and receive that thing. Fine. Now, what the target needs to do is that they need to enter that email that URL that you're giving them. That is the IP address. How do you do that is up to you. So you could maybe create a QR code for that IP address, or you could send them that IP address. But then again, if somebody receives an IP address, they're going to be suspicious. You need to mask that IP address in some form of, let's say, a URL shortener, or you could use such services, right? So it doesn't matter how you do that. I'll take an example just after this. So uh, you get them to open your URL, that is your IP address. Once they do that, the browser will open with a interface similar to what the website that you cloned. And once they log into it, right, they could enter their username and password, and the page will be refreshed and it will be redirected to the original source page. So to them, it will not even feel like something happened. It'll feel like they must have had a glitch or some network issue. But what happened was that their credentials have been sent to our receiver, and the receiver, it creates a file over in this folder, right? I could have modified this output file. I could have said that create a file on the desktop itself, because that is convenient, but that is for a different thing. Over here, it has created a file under root.set and reports. And when I accessed this file, I was able to see that the email was FireShark and the password was secret password, very secret, right? Apparently very secret. So that information I got, and I could have run the server on a public thing, and anybody who logs in, I'll get their credentials. So this is very easy, right? Very simple. And delete. Yep. So as I said, very easy thing to do, right? Anybody can do this in a matter of seconds, I would say. You could create a website for yourself and host sort of this website credential hacker harvester. Another thing that I wanted to show you was regarding this QR code generator, right? So when I was talking about giving that URL to your targets without them getting suspicious, is that we could use this URL, QR code generator. So I could do this, and I could enter the URL that I want to generate the code for. So let's say let's just take an example of my own IP address for now. I will enter this, and the QR code has been generated under the same folder, that is .set reports QR code attack.png, and I'll press return to continue. And meanwhile, I will go to that folder again. I'll have to open it, and .set reports, and this is my QR code. See, and you think that this looks so innocent, right? You could post this on anywhere basically, right? You could leave this QR code lying anywhere. You could create pamphlets of this, distribute them. How easy that is. Anybody who would scan this would be redirected to your URL without them even realizing that they have entered and you that is not a genuine URL, an evil URL that doesn't even look genuine, but they just scan this QR code, right? So it is again advisable to not scan random QR codes. I know it is tempting just to see as to what this code will do, but more likely than not, it is going to be doing something malicious. That is why they are trying to hide it under this QR code, right? If they were so innocent, why would they not give you this IP address? The website address itself. So. Uh, that is how we generated a QR code with that email address, that URL that we set. So that was about this, and this has a lot of more tools, and you should actually work with this and try to find out what all you can do in this, right? Infectious media generators, again, you can generate media which is infectious. You could hide. Let's open that, right? Infectious media generator. So it will create an autorun.inf, that is information file, and a metasploit payload. When the CD, DVD, or your USB is inserted, it will automatically run if the autorun is enabled, right? So you can imagine what kind of evil things that can be done here. You are creating a malicious autorun.inf file, right? And this file is autorun by default in most PCs. I think nowadays the PCs are configured to let you select what to do when the pen drive is inserted or when the CD is inserted. But in the old systems, it used to run by default, right? So if you have created a malicious autorun.inf, you could run a payload on their systems as soon as they insert their pen drive. Again, so and advice again would be to not use random USB drives or CD drives without knowing their source or if they are safe or not. And again, you could have an exploit ready-made, or you could create one yourself, and that is very easy actually. And actually, using a predefined one is pretty easy. Creating your own is not that difficult either. You just need to get the terminology in check, right? So over here in this folder itself, you have this MSF payload creator, and this is doing that payload creation job. MSF is your Metasploit framework, and Metasploit, if you do not know, is the that holy software. No, sorry, not so holy. Uh, that software which will let you run your exploits basically on your target system. So this is where all the fun hacking that we see on movies and everything. This is where it all lies. So you get a mastery over this Metasploit. You'll be able to attack the target systems and find weaknesses, exploit them, and so on. So MSF payload creator is for creating payloads that you can transmit over to your target and run on them. Now, how you run them is up to you. Like we saw where did my terminal go? Sorry about that. So over here we saw about creating a malicious autorun file, which we can use. And it is up to you how you want to deliver that payload. Maybe you want to send them in an email, like a compressed file, or maybe host it somewhere and let them download that on their own. Maybe send it on WhatsApp and they open it and run it on their phones, thinking that it is some simple media file, right? We have payloads for Androids and phones as well. It is not like they're immune to all this. There are viruses that are spreading on Androids as well. And again, I think uh, iPhones were not an exception here either. You can have viruses running on that. You just need to be careful because, again, the person who's creating an exploit on iPhone needs to make sure as to how they're going to run it on their iPhone, because iPhone has a tighter security than most phones, most systems out there, right? But it is not entirely impossible. You can do it on iPhones as well. So this was about this social engineering toolkit, right? And go ahead, give this a try. I will get back to our, where is my slides? Yep, yep. So I hope my screen is still visible, right? I hope so. So that was about our social engineering toolkit. Now, this is a screenshot from somebody's toolkit, right? And again, this was running on a Kali. You can see the dragon behind it. So and this is a product of Trusted Sec. So this is a company which has compiled all these codes and made it into a pretty, I think, easy to use interface for anybody to use. Now there is something called a HACKSEARCH Pro plugin. So you can uh, have this plugin, and while you browse any website, the plugin works in the background to perform passive reconnaissance for you. It looks up the public databases to gather as much information as it can, and it finds things like who is info or MX records, TNS information, and more. So because the tool does the query search on the sites directly, the owner won't even be alerted. Essentially, what is happening is you could enable this hacker search plugin on your Firefox, and what happens is when you browse a website, so it to the server it will look like that you're genuinely browsing their website, because uh, how do websites get to know that you are running or sort of running an exploit on their website or doing some brute force attack or something? It is because that the websites have such pattern recognitions where they see that, okay, this seems to be a bot, this seems to be malicious activity happening, so they block it right away. But when you're doing it yourself, when you're browsing the website, so as a human being, you will not be flagged that way because you're scrolling, you're opening up websites or different links from that website will be not machine like, and because of that you'll not be flagged. You can continue to browse the website while in the background this plugin will be collecting information about the target. I'm not talking about those credentials and everything. That is a different thing. That is a different attack. Here we're trying to access who is information, DNS information, and whatever information that we could have gotten, but somehow their firewalls were blocking it from when we were trying to run it from our terminals or our command prompts. So we can do this using this HackSearch Pro plugin. So we'll not be blocked. The firewall will not get to know that we are accessing that information as well. So this is a screenshot again. You could have this HackSearch Pro, and this runs in the background, and you could continue to scroll the websites in a normal manner. Another software is called Multigo. Now, the software that we've looked at so far, Multigo is like a sort of an amalgamation of all that, where you can access all that information in one place. So it is one of the most amazing tools available for social engineering and penetration testing. While the tool is commercial and must be bought, there is a free version available, that is your community edition. So Multigo can help you find almost any information that you may need for a social engineering attack, like DNS information, email addresses, server technologies, people, and a lot more. So it is a time saver. Basically, all those tools that we've seen so far and many more. There are many more tools out there. I just showed you some examples and tried to explain what the principle behind that tool is. Right? So you can find n number of tools out there. What Multico does is it compiles all of those tools, all of those services into one interface where you can have an organized hack, an organized information gathering system. So what I'll do is I'll show you what Multico looks like. So over here, do I have Multico installed? Let's see. In case you do not have Multico installed, what you need to do is you just say sudo apt get install Multico, and that should install Multico. I'll do that right now. So I'll enter my password. Invalid get. I think invalid. Yeah. So it is, the command is this one, apt get, where there is a hyphen in between, right? So that was my mistake, genuine mistake, and so it was already installed, so it did not do anything. It just reloaded the repositories. So when you have that installed on your system, just open it using your terminal or just find it under your applications. Maybe you can search for it, right? And I'll start it from my terminal just because it is
Could you
cooler.
please explain the Mexico and
Hello, yes.
could
Your voice is actually breaking. Can you please say that again?
you explain the Maldigo one more?
I'm actually opening Multico actually, so I'll try to explain it with the demonstration only. Are you trying?
Okay.
Should I explain how to install it?
You can explain.
See, installing it is quite simple. So you can open your terminal and type in this command. I'll maybe zoom into it so you can see. right? You can get the package from your website also. So you can go to your Maltico website and download their dpkg file, and then you could use your terminal to install it. Again, everything is installed using terminal only in our Linux, right? There is no, like, we used to have those exe installers on Windows. We do not have those on Linux. So this is the command that you can do, and this is pretty easy. It'll just auto install it, right? And that should be it. Once you open it, now my I have already logged in into my community edition. When you open it for the first time, you will see that you need to choose. Maybe you need to select a pro version. I think basically the first two or three versions are pro version where you have to pay. But the last two versions, there is a free version and there is a community edition. So I'm showing this to you on a community edition. Right, so this is what the interface looks like on a community edition. Community edition is in itself means that it is a free version, made for the community itself. So on Maltigo, we have all these services, all these tools installed. Like I talked about Census, right? I talked about Census. I talked about Shodan. So all those things are here. Let me show you. I think Shodan is also here. So here is Shodan. I can install it. Right? They're not default installed by default because I just installed the package, but you can install it, and you can choose any of these tools. You can see them, right? I have not covered all these tools. I've told you about some of them. Like Splunk is used for forensics, right? uh, there is some Google social network plugin, Google Maps plugin, and domain tools. We talked about domain tools in a previous lecture, right? So all these things are available to you for you to use. In community edition, you may not have all of them available to you, right? The free ones will be available. Like I think this some of them, it will tell you that they're not available for you to install. For that, you'll need to purchase the pro pack. But just for demonstration, we have such a scenario here. What we can do on this is that we could uh, if you're trying to investigate, if you're trying to have a target, so you could create a new file from that. So I think this is open, share, right? Create a new graph. So what that does is you will create a new graph and you will collect information from any of these tools that you have installed, and all of that information will be shown to you on a graph. You can see how they're related, how every dot connects. So basically, you can do all of these tools in isolation. You can use Shodan for gathering information. You can use your Splunk to get your forensic investigation going. You could use your other Census to get that information about the operating system and so on, right? But this Multico does it all in one place in a graphical user interface, right? And it is better to just understand all those results when you see it in one place, right? So this is what Multico is good for. I will not get into how to use Multico because then that is a big topic in itself. This is a pretty big tool, and since it has everything built into it, it takes time to learn it. So you should install it and see how you can play around with it, right? Because ultimately, the best way to learn is to practice on it in any scenario. Actually, using any tool, I can explain it to you, right? I can show you the path that you can hack this way or you can collect information this way, but unless you do it yourself, you will not learn, right? So you need to install this and play around with it. Then you'll learn about what Multigo is and how it works, how important that is. Since it is having this pro pack and your professional versions, there must be a reason that it is existing, right? So that is about Multigo. Now, again, this is another topic that we need to talk about is social engineering education. So we've talked about how it is easy to influence other people into giving up information to you and exploit them basically. And they don't even realize that they've done something like that, right? They do not even know that they've given up information that they're not supposed to do. So we need, as cybersecurity professionals, it is our responsibility because we are the ones who are trying to, give them cybersecurity. So we need to make sure that they're educated about social engineering. They should know about how the kind of attacks can happen, how people can try to influence them, and how they can prevent all this from happening. So education is the best way to go, right? Because ultimately you can have n number of security policies. There is governance, there is cyber risk, everything is in place, right? There are rules that you have to change your passwords regularly. Companies make that rule. They say that your password should be so and so characters long, or you cannot share your credentials with anybody else, or you cannot use your own devices on the public or your company network. They could set any number of rules, but ultimately, people are the ones who are working, and people tend to make mistakes. So unless we educate them about social engineering, they will continue to make those mistakes, or maybe new mistakes that were not thought of by the planning, by the security team. So the best way is to educate them, right? And thing is like when we say that QR code, again, I tried to mention them as we went along. So never scanning QR codes, random QR codes, never using ghost drives or randomly pen drives that have been placed on the, your, if you find a USB drive on your in your house or in your office and you do not recognize it, you do not need to plug it in and see what the contents are. You can just abandon it altogether. You can throw it in the bin for all you care. Why? Because it can be malicious. And based on the the system that you're working on, based on the access that you have, you should not take that risk. If you are maybe at your home and you're not having any sensitive information, you may plug it in again, but then the risk is that you may not know that you have some information that is valuable, but you just don't realize it. Maybe your own credentials, maybe you have some cookies stored. So I think this I need to mention here. This is sort of important. And I talked about this briefly when I was talking about those layers of OSI model. When we're talking about session layer, right? We have something called cookie. When you log into some website, it generates a cookie so as to enable that session, and you do not have to enter your password again and again when you try to access another web page of the same website, right? So that entire session will be attached with that cookie. So that cookie is stored somewhere on your system, right? It is a file. It has that access credential thing. So if somebody gets a hold of your cookie, they could replicate what you're doing. Maybe they'll get a session of their own in your name, and the server will not be able to verify them. So again, it is important for you to firstly clear your cookies and cache on a regular basis. And again, if you insert some pen drive into it, maybe they're copying your cookie files. Maybe they'll get access to your accounts, and then who knows what they'll do, right? So it is always important to take such steps. And I think I cannot expressly say which all steps that need to be taken. It is up to you as to how you can imagine your social engineering attacks to be, and how you can educate your peers. So I think you should start this, from today itself. If you've not done this in the past, start from your own home. Educate your parents, educate your siblings, educate your friends about all this. That all these things do happen. Passwords are stolen. For example, if you're typing your password and somebody's speaking over you, right? So that again is something that should not happen. That is a breach of privacy. So people need to be careful, and that starts from our home. Start there, and try to build upon that. Educate people around you as to be aware about social engineering, and how harmful this can be, right? We all hear about stories when old people, they do not know understand banking and everything, right? And their credentials are maybe stolen, or they callers call them and they ask for their credit card information, and they say that they're doing this on the behalf of the bank, and so things has happened, and they need to provide that OTP, right? And you never should provide an OTP, by the way. But then they do not know that, because they have not been educated about that. So we as cybersecurity people have that responsibility towards the society, right? So with that, I will conclude today's session, right? And if anybody of you has any questions, feel free to ask them. I hope my screen was visible, because I don't know. I think there was some glitch on my system. I did not realize that my screen was not visible or not. Can somebody confirm if it was visible?
Yes, sir, it was.
Thank you, Veda. So if anybody does not have any question, I just want to remind you that an assignment was given to you, right, on the last weekend, and you should do it before the deadline. So this is just a reminder. If you're not done it, please do it on time. And that's all for today. I will see you tomorrow. Okay.